Act 3, Julius Caesar. The exposition for the most part is done. We are building the rising action to one of the climactic moments. This is a play that I feel there are a couple climactic moments, but this is one of those huge heightened moments that if you're going up rising action, oh, we have a climax, okay, great, oh, build up, and we'll have another bigger one at the end. But we need Caesar to die so that we can see what Brutus is going to do about it. This is the most famous, this and the next rather, are the most famous scenes of this play. This is seeing the death of Caesar, but most importantly, Brutus's motivation, his reaction, and how he controls the masses afterwards. And then we'll see Mark Antony, his emergence as a real character. And remember, Cassius wanted to kill Marcus Antony. Okay, not Marcus Antony. No, Mark Antony, rather. He wanted to kill him, and then he said, no, don't worry about it. He's harmless. It's like hacking a limb off a body after you take the head. It's pointless. We don't want to be butchers. Okay, we want to be purgers. And so this is really that discovery of Antony and Brutus in these next couple scenes. So pay particularly close attention to that. So scene 1, the Capitol in Rome, the Ides of March. So the Capitol in Rome, the Ides of March, it is the same day that all of this other stuff is happening. We know that this is the scene that's going to end it all. So we have this real rising action. We'll see Caesar being interrupted by that soothsayer who's trying to wave at him and talk to him. Artemidorus trying to get him that letter. So all of these things, if he just took the time and listened to them and read them, he might be safe, or at least cautious enough to maybe retreat home or distance themselves from these people, just so he can maybe refocus, but he doesn't. That's where we, his flaw occurs. On the next page, if you just look quickly, around line 60 and 70, the stabbing comes pretty quickly. Caesar, I want you to remember, we're watching this on stage. How can they get close to him in order to do the deed? Okay, look at how they, have kind of doctored up or covered up their motive in order for them to get close to him and then stab at him. Once he's dead, I want you to look at the immediate reactions of the individuals. Look at what Brutus says, what Cassius says. Look at the actions that they do. Does it sound kind of familiar to Copernicus' dream? We'll talk about that. But a very important scene, especially when around line 150 or so, Mark Antony shows up, who was that loyal supporter of Caesar, and you'll get to see what the individuals, what Antony has to say, and getting his questions answered. So just a lot of action on this particular scene, a lot of suspense, because of whether this is going to work or not. Act 3, Scene 1.
Act 3. Scene 1. The Capitol in Rome, the Ides of March. Flourish. Enter Caesar, Brutus, Cassius.
Act 3, Scene 1, the Capitol in Rome, the Ides of March. If you can follow along, please. We see Caesar, the Ides of March are come. Aye, Caesar, but not gone. Mean you haven't survived the day. Not that he remembers a month ago being told this in the street by somebody, but yet we know that there's a little bit of subtext, a subliminal message there in the soothsayer. Even Artemidorus, hey, read this schedule document, read this that I've written. And he pushes him aside. Delay not, Caesar, read it instantly. You need to do it, And then after he pushes them off, he enters the Capitol, the rest following. And this is an interesting moment. This individual called Popilius, this senator who is not a conspirator, he stops Cassius and goes, I wish your enterprise today may thrive. Oh. What enterprise? Cassius is playing dumb. Because if other senators not in the conspiracy know something is up, that what they're going to do, well, that's not good for them. Because maybe Caesar even knows. So this is not good. Popilius, fare you well. Brutus comes up. What did Popilius say? He wished today our enterprise might thrive. I fear our purpose is discovered. Look how he makes to Caesar. Mark him, because then he went straight to Caesar and he's whispering, Casca, be sudden, for we fear prevention. Brutus, what shall be done? If this be known, Cassius or Caesar never shall turn back, for I will slay myself. So look how he's over there. Oh, what's he whispering? Oh no, he's probably telling them. Well, if he does that, Casca, better ready, because we've got to do this quick. Because Caesar's going to die here today, or I'm going to kill myself. So he's really, there's a lot of stress and pressure happening. Brutus says, Cassius, calm down, be constant. Popilius Lena speaks not of our purposes, for look, he smiles, and Caesar doth not change. So if Caesar was being told that so-and-so is going to kill you, wouldn't you kind of react a little bit differently than just sitting there listening to this person? One would think. Good. Cassius says, Trebonius knows his time, for look you, Brutus, he draws Mark Antony out of the way. Mark Antony, you can just imagine standing there, standing guard to some degree, just standing next to Caesar. So Trebonius, one of the conspirators, the one that Caesar says, stay near me so that we can talk, he knows his time because he's taken Mark Antony. Hey, buddy, I need to talk to you. Come on, let's go over here. Let's go. So now Caesar is, for the most part, alone. And then we have kind of the proceedings about what's going on, what would normally happen. And we see that Metellus Cimber, most high, most mighty, and most saint, Caesar, powerful Caesar, Metellus Cimber throws before thy seat a humble heart. So he's pleading and begging for the return of his brother. Okay, who was cast out in exile. Caesar allowed that instead of death. He sent him away. So he's begging and pleading. So he's close to Caesar. He's kneeling before him. And Caesar goes, oh, I must prevent thee, Cimber. These couchings and these lowly courtesies might fire the blood of ordinary men. And we already know that Caesar does not consider himself ordinary. So line 40, to think that Caesar bears such rebel blood that will be thawed from the true quality with that which melteth fools. Thy brother by decree is banished. If thou dost bend and pray and fawn for him, I spurn thee like a cur. So I kick you to the curb like a dog. Out of my way. No, Caesar doth not wrong, nor without cause will be satisfied. So without a really good reason why I'm not going to do that. See, I banished him once. I banished him for a reason, and now you're begging for me to change my decision? Why, was I wrong? Was I mistaken? I'm Caesar. I don't make mistakes. And so Brutus comes close. Now imagine this. Visualize this. We have Caesar sitting there. We have Metellus kneeling in front of him. And Antony's not present. So imagine Brutus coming closer to him. And he says, I kiss thy hand, but not in flattery, Caesar, desiring thee that Publius Cimber may have an immediate freedom of repeal. What? Brutus? Then Cassius steps up. Pardon, Caesar. Caesar, pardon. So everybody is publicly saying, we want this person not to be banished anymore. But as each new person talks, they move closer and closer and closer. And you can just imagine him being swarmed at some point. Caesar's response, line 58. I could be well moved if I were as you. If I could pray to move, prayers would move me, but I am constant as the northern star. I will not bend. I will not change. I am Caesar. I was not wrong. Okay? It's not going to happen. That I am constant, line 73. That I was constant, Cimber should be banished, and constant do remain to keep him so. Then we have a new person, sit up. Oh, Caesar, hence wilt thou lift up Olympus? What do you guys want me to do? This is impossible for me to do. I'm not going to do that. And so as people, dear Caesar, doth not Brutus bootless kneel? Speak, hands for me. So we have all of these people surrounding him until Casca delivers the first shot. Speak, hands for me, he stabs. And then on stage, this is very quiet. Okay, if you've ever seen a movie where somebody gets knifed, it's not like bang, a gunshot. It's very, maybe even not even noise. It's just slowly insert. It might be a noise. and a withdrawal. It might be it. And so this would be people just grunting, and Caesar's wound. I mean, it's just stabbing. And finally, this is the most famous line in the play. Caesar goes, "Et tu, Brute," and you also, Brutus, and you too, everyone else, and you. Because Brutus, everybody thinks so noble of Brutus. He is so up there that for you to do it too, that is the worst blow of all. And that's the biggest knife wound. Then falls Caesar, and Caesar dies. Immediately, liberty, freedom, tyranny is dead. Some go to the common pulpits and cry out, liberty, freedom, enfranchisement. So these pulpits, like in church, places people speak. So they have these little places, and not stools, but little like stages people can stand and deliver news and orations and speeches and stuff. And so it's spreading out. Go to the pulpit, Brutus. Yes, and Cassius must go. Where's Publius? Here. I'm quite confounded by the mutiny, so I'm here. I don't know what's going on. Everybody just decided to kill our ruler. No one told me what's happening, so I'm a bit confused. Relax. Relax, Publius. No harm is intended to your person, nor to no Roman else. So it was just a killing of Caesar. Good. Notice on the next page, line 105, Brutus says, "Stoop, Romans, stoop, and let us bathe our hands in Caesar's blood up to the elbows, and besmear our swords. Then walk we forth, even to the marketplace, and waving our red weapons over our heads, let's all cry, peace, freedom, and liberty." Does this look a little familiar to what Calpurnia's dream was? And what Decius said was, Caesar's wounds and everybody bathing and washing in the blood? And now it actually happened. So we had those omens come to fruition. So Cassius, stoop then and wash. And this is just a neat little moment. I love this line. It goes, "How many ages hence shall this our lofty scene be acted over in states unborn and accents yet unknown?" This is a very important moment in history, not just for Rome. And for how many ages and eons and years will this be reenacted and our story be told in places not even discovered, in accents that aren't even heard yet or created? Which is kind of interesting because this happened, BC. America wasn't America for another 1,700 years, give or take some few decades, right? And yet, aren't we reading this? Not necessarily reenacting as a play, but this play is produced. And so it's almost like, wow, look how important it truly was. And Cassius was correct on that. The bottom here, this is where the scene takes a big shift. We see Mark Antony's servant show up, and it's really to find out what's going on, because Antony heard what happened and he took off. Obviously, because there's nothing he can do against a whole bunch of people. So line 125, Mark Antony, he bade me say, Brutus is noble, wise, valiant, and honest. Caesar was mighty, bold, royal, and loving. Say, so tell Brutus that I love Brutus, and I honor him. Say that I feared Caesar, but I honored him and loved him as well. If Brutus will vouchsafe that Antony, so if he will allow Antony that he may safely come here to be resolved, to find out what's going on, how Caesar hath deserved to lie in death, Mark Antony shall not love Caesar dead so well as Brutus lived. So, will you give me safe passage, is what he's saying, to come and find out why you guys did this? Because I'm really confused. And if you give me good reasons, I will not love Caesar and dead nearly as much as I love you, Brutus. And so he's willing to kind of pledge his allegiance to Brutus and the people in charge. That doesn't sound very loyal to Caesar, like everybody thought. And so we see Brutus tell the servant that the master is a wise and valiant Roman. I never thought him worse. Tell him to please come unto this place. He shall be satisfied, and by my honor, depart untouched. So he will be saved. And so that's why we see Antony show up here in a little bit. Look at Brutus's line. I know that we shall have him well to a friend. He's going to be a good friend for us. Cassius, I wish he may, but yet have I a mind that fears him much. This is so important. Cassius is the one who wanted to kill him originally. Even now, he's like, I still fear him. I'm still not convinced that he should stay alive, but we'll go with it. Because we'll see at the very end of this act, very end of this scene, that Mark Antony should be feared. Because he is going to lead, in his opinion, a revolution of just carnage and gore to fight back for Caesar. And so all of this, up until now, is going to be an act. And we will see that play out here in just another page. Look at page 818, line 150-ish. Mark Antony shows up. Oh, mighty Caesar, dost thou lie so low? Are all thy conquests, glories, triumphs, spoils, shrunk to this little measure? Fare thee well. I know not, gentlemen, what you intend. Who else must be let blood? Who else is rank? If I myself, there is no hour so fit as Caesar's death hour, nor no instrument of half that worth as those your swords made rich with the most noble blood of all this world. And so if I am supposed to die too, there is not a better time within the hour of Caesar's death, and kill me with the swords that killed him with his blood. That would be the perfect day. If I'm supposed to die, kill me now, and I will be happy. I will be happy. If I lived 1,000 years, I shall not find myself so apt, so ready to die. No place will please me so. Brutus, oh, Antony, beg not your death of us. Though now we must appear bloody and cruel, as by our hands, yet see you but our hands, and this the bleeding business they have done. Let me tell you why we did this. Why? What happened? I really like line 182. It talks about, and then we will deliver you the cause, the reason, the explanation, why I, that did love Caesar when I struck him, have thus proceeded. Oh, I doubt not of your wisdom. Let each man render me his bloody hand. First, Marcus. So Antony's walking around, shaking the blood-covered hand of every conspirator, welcoming them. I shake your hand. I shake you. I shake you. Line 191. My credit, my reputation, now stands on such slippery ground that one of two bad ways you must conceit me, that you must consider me, judge me, that you must think of me. Either a coward or a flatterer. That I did love Caesar, oh, 'tis true. If then thy spirit look upon us now, shall it not grieve thee dearer than thy death to see thy Antony making his peace, shaking the hands? So, I know I love Caesar, and if Caesar's spirit's looking down at me shaking your hands, it's killing him more than the action just did. I did love him. But if you tell me reasons why that I should be happy that he's dead, I will pledge my allegiance and support to you. So that's why you might think me a coward or a flatterer, but I want you to know that I am sincere in what I say. Cassius, even on the next page, 215. I blame you not for praising Caesar so, but what compact mean you to have with us? So what are your plans, Antony? And this is one of those lines where you can tell Antony has this little underscore, this little, that's not, I'm going to test him right here. I'm going to test him. Will you be pricked in number of our friends? Or shall we on and not depend on you? We need to know what's going on. Line 220, friends, am I with you all and love you all, and upon this hope that you shall give me reasons why and wherein Caesar was dangerous. I will be everything you want me to be. Just tell me why you did it. Just explain to me what led you to this. Our reasons are so full of good regard that were you Antony, the son of Caesar, you should be satisfied. So not only are they good reasons, but if you were his offspring, and we did this, and we told you why we did it, you would be okay with it. You'd be okay with your dad being killed, because you would agree with us so much. Cassius to Brutus. There's an aside here. Brutus, a word with you. You know not what you do. do not consent that Antony speak in the funeral. All Antony wants is a chance to speak at the funeral, and the funeral is a public spectacle where we get to address the crowd. And that's the only thing that Mark Antony has asked for, the ability. And Brutus says that's fine. And Cassius is like, do we really want to do that? Know you how much the people may be moved by that which he will utter? Okay. And here's his plan. Here's how Brutus is going to allow it. I will myself into the pulpit first and show the reason of our Caesar's death. What Antony shall speak, and I will protest he speaks by legal permission. So I will talk first. I will warn them about Antony. I will warn them that we have allowed him to speak with our permission. And so that's a good way to kind of keep everybody under our thumb. And so we won't be lying to them and they'll know what's going on. Caesar shall have all true rights and lawful ceremonies. Oh, Cassius, I know not what may fall, but I like it not. I don't know what's going to happen. In essence, this is a Star Wars reference. I have a bad feeling about this. Okay, it shows up in almost every movie. I've got a bad feeling about this. This is a bad idea. And this is going to come back where they should have listened to Cassius. He had all of these feelings and thoughts, and they could have saved a lot of headaches if they would have done that. Brutus says to Mark Antony, here, take you Caesar's body. You shall not in your funeral speech blame us. So this is important. You can speak, but these are your rules. You shall not blame us. You speak all good you can devise of Caesar, and say you do it by our permission. Else shall you not have any hand at all about funeral. So you can say all you want good about him, but you can't say anything bad about us, and you must tell them that you speak by permission of us. If you can't do those, you don't get to speak. Okay, deal. I will do that. Be it so, I do desire no more. Good, prepare the body then and follow us. Now, this soliloquy here is Antony, one of his most famous. Okay, this is the moment where we find out that he is a very impassioned individual. We can see that he was playing those other people for fools and chumps for the last couple pages. And we see this from the beginning with the body. Oh, pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth, that I am meek and gentle with these butchers. Woe to the hand that shed this costly blood. Over thy wounds now do I prophesy. So over thy wounds I swear. I see this vision, and this is what's going to happen. Look at the imagery of this. Look at the description of what's happening here. He says that a curse shall light upon the limbs of men. Domestic fury and fierce civil strife shall cumber all the parts of Italy. So he's saying that there's going to be domestic at home, war and civil war, and all over Italy there's going to be all this war and strife. Blood and destruction shall be so in use, and dreadful objects so familiar, that mothers shall but smile when they behold their infants quartered with the hands of war. So people, you're going to be so used to blood and destruction and death that women are going to smile when they're holding their baby cut in 4 pieces and dead in their arms. And they'll be smiling. They'll be so desensitized to violence and so used to the violence. That's a pretty bloody picture. There's a lot of anger and violence in his words, and that should show you that this is Mark Antony that they should have been fearful of, and Cassius was right to fear him. And so we can only imagine what's going to happen in the next scene when he gets to speak. Oh, he's going to follow those rules. He'll follow the rules because he's a man of his word. But when we look at the wording of his speech, it's going to be awesome. And he'll be able to get the crowd impassioned to a fury, just like he feels here. He talks about that all pity is going to be choked with customs of fell deeds. So focus the familiarity with cruel deeds, so desensitized. And Caesar's spirit ranging for revenge, with Atti at his side, come hot from hell, shall in these confines with a monarch's voice cry havoc, and let slip the dogs of war. So Caesar's spirit's going to come back from hell, and with the havoc, with this the goddess of vengeance and strife, and they're going to fight side by side, and it's going to be bloody, and it's going to be death to everybody. A very dark and violent and graphic. Okay, soliloquy here, one of the most graphic that I've seen in any Shakespeare. And we see here what fire is burning inside Mark Antony. So even though he might be calm on the exterior for the conspirator's sake, he is going to be fiery on the inside. The last little bit here, a servant shows up, and it's Octavius, his servant. And we spoke about this in our background information. Octavius Caesar is a relative of Julius Caesar. Do you think it's safe in Rome at this time for anybody named Caesar? No, not at all. And so he says that Octavius Caesar is coming near. Good. Caesar did right for him to come to Rome. Oh, he received the letters and he's coming. And then the servant sees the body. Oh, Caesar! Relax. Where's he at? Oh, he's 7 leagues from Rome, so he's a ways away. Okay, go back to him and tell him what happened. Tell him what's transpired. Here is a mourning Rome. A dangerous Rome. No Rome of safety for Octavius yet. And tell him that. Tell him to stay a while. Thou shalt not back till I have borne this corse in the market. So don't go away. Stay there until I have had a chance to speak at the funeral. There shall I try in my oration, in my speech, how the people take the cruel issue of these bloody men. And according to the which thou shalt discourse to young Octavius of the state of things, lend me. So go tell him everything. Tell him what you saw. Tell him to stay calm. Tell him I'm going to give a speech. Everything should work out. But just tell him to lay low and stay cool for a while. It isn't safe for him. And this is going to lead up to the most famous portion. That scene was big, but this next one is even bigger, where it's his public funeral, where Brutus is going to speak to a crowd who is angry about Caesar's death. But by the end of Brutus, they're like, wow, Brutus, thank you for delivering us from hell, from Julius Caesar. Thank you. And then all of a sudden they bring Antony out, and Antony's facing an angry mob. But yet he's able to get them back on board. And just within 20 or 30 lines, they're able to sway the whole populace of Rome, which is just going to be amazing. So that's where we will go with Act 3, Scene 2. Act 3, Scene 2, Julius Caesar. If you look at the setting, it says the Roman Forum, the city's great public square. It says a few days later. If you tend to skip over things or don't read that information, you might think it happened immediately after the the assassination. Which since this body of Caesar is going to be present at this public viewing for all of these speeches, this is his funeral. This is probably the most famous scene from the entire play. In just kind of reflecting what happened just on the previous few pages, Caesar obviously died. Brutus and all the conspirators are happy. They're having a great time. There's a lot of confusion in the streets of Rome as to, okay, our most popular leader was just assassinated. We could feel a lot of different ways. Some people might feel happy, some people might feel scared. But overall, at this point, the public is very concerned. Why did this happen? Why? We need to know why. And that's really their motivation for this particular scene, the public. Brutus and Cassius and all his conspirators have elected Brutus to speak at this particular scene. Cassius has gone elsewhere around Rome. Okay? Remember, we talked at the beginning of the unit that I think somebody mentioned that at the height of Rome, at one point they had 1 million people within their city. That's quite a lot. You're not going to fit 1 million people around this one public square. And so they kind of sent out couriers, and Cassius went, and Brutus is staying here, and their goal is to tell they're called plebeians, just common folk, to tell the public why we did this and get them on board onto our cause. That's their goal. Okay, that's their goal for this particular scene. Now, remember in the previous scene, Mark Antony, he walked in, tell me why you did this, and I will love you more than I love Caesar and death. So we're cool, but you need to tell me. You go, you will be told. You will be told in such a way that if you were Caesar's child, you'd be cool with us killing your dad. So that's where Antony is at. So everybody leaves. Antony's cool. We're cool. They leave, and you almost see, not necessarily horns come out of his head, but you see him going into great detail about how I will enact my revenge. It will be so bloody and so gory and so much death and destruction for so long that women holding their dead babies cut into pieces will smile down at it. Because they are so just, it's an everyday sight. All the blood and gore and death. This is a very emotional and impassioned soul. And remember, you got to remember that he is the one that Cassius wanted to kill, but Brutus said no, he's not going to cause us problem. Well, Antony asked, do you mind if I speak at Caesar's funeral? Cassius says no. Brutus goes, yes, you can, but you must tell everybody, and don't worry because we'll tell them ahead of you, that you are allowed to speak because we allow it. You must not speak falsely against Brutus and the other conspirators. But you could say anything positive you want about Caesar, that's fine. We know you like him, that's fine. So you have to play by these rules or there's no game. Antony says, I will play along. This is such a great scene because if you just skim these couple pages, you see these big chunks. These are speeches in front of, in essence, in front of all of Rome, even though they don't have the 1 million people there. Look at the audience, the plebeians, the audience to the speeches. They are confused. They're supporting supporting Caesar. But after Brutus talks, notice where they're at. Do they support Caesar less and Brutus more, or are they still confused? Are they angry? Where are they at on this little scale? Because when Antony speaks as kind of a representative of Caesar, look at the reaction that he gets. Then, when he's done speaking, look at the reaction. And I think you will see that Cassius was right to think that Mark Antony, the honorable, loyal Mark Antony, that he should live. Cassius did not think that he should live. And you will see they should have done what Cassius said, and things might have changed. Things might be much different, and the next 2 acts could be completely different. So, scene 2, the Roman Forum, the city's great public square, a few days later, as they bring on Caesar's body, as Mark Antony references the body, you have a 2-day-old corpse, still covered in its original clothes, blood, gore, all of that. Now, I haven't been around a lot of dead bodies, but I can imagine things would start to smell after a while. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's just, that doesn't matter for the whole play, but just think about this body hasn't been buried or cremated or put to rest. It's still in its original state, to the best of my knowledge of what's going on. Okay, so everybody will be able to see, you know, not on camera in Jumbotron, but if anybody walked by the body, they would be able to see the destruction and ferocity with which he died. So we are on scene 2. Act 2, scene 2. We have Brutus talking to a plebeian crowd who is confused, who look at their very first line. We will be satisfied. We want an explanation. Why did you guys do what you just, why did he die? Why did he need to die? And look at the phrasing that Brutus, remember, he's an honorable person. People think he's very, noble, and he has a lineage and, ancestry and all of that. He mentions there in his speech, be patient till the last. So, relax. Let me tell you until, you hear everything. Romans, countrymen, and lovers, hear me for my cause, and be silent, that you may hear. Believe me for mine honor, and have respect to mine honor, that you may believe. So you know me, you know what I stand for, so know that what I tell you is true. I have not lied to you, and here's what I have to say. If there be any in this assembly, any dear friend of Caesar's, to him I say that Brutus's love to Caesar was no less than his. If then that friend demand why Brutus rose against Caesar, this is my answer. Not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. That's the driving force for Brutus, for the entire play, for all of his actions against Caesar, all of his decisions. It's not that he said earlier, I love Caesar. You know, but here we see that I love Rome more, and I being Brutus. Okay, so if anybody here says that you love him and you're upset by the death, I'm upset by the death. And I'm one of the killers. But I love Rome more. That's the key to understanding the motivation of this particular action. The very last line 24, 25 there. As Caesar loved me, I weep for him. As he was fortunate, I rejoice at it. As he was valiant, I honor him. But as he was ambitious, I slew him. There is tears for his love, joy for his fortune, honor for his valor, and death for his ambition. So, he's doing a really good job of telling the public, you know, not saying, you know, I should be the next person. I did this as a power grab. No, I did this out of love, and I honor him, and I rejoice at him, and I weep for him. But he had to die. And he tells them the motive, his ambition, which is what is the cause of, this is the reasoning that Cassius approached Brutus in the first place. They were worried about what could happen in the future. Now Cassius has ulterior motives, maybe. I don't think he wants to ascend to be Caesar. He just does not like Caesar. Okay, I saved that man from drowning, I blah, blah, blah. He's weak. All of these things. Brutus has none of those feelings. Brutus loves a man. But you got to understand the motivation for this character at this particular time, at this particular moment. I love Rome more. There at the end of that, he goes, who is here so rude that would not be a Roman? If any speak, for him I have offended. Who is here so vile that will not love his country? If any speak, for him have I offended. I pause for a reply. None, worthy Brutus, none. So all these people that were confused, fearful, maybe a little anger underneath, but nothing like we see at the very end of the scene. They are leaving him because Brutus did this for Rome, not for himself. And so if anybody here disagrees with me, then you are not a true Roman. Go ahead, speak. Let's hear you. Let's hear what you have to say. Well, do you think somebody's going to raise their hand in front of a horde of thousands, tens of thousands maybe? He's swaying them to their cause, and it's a very emotional. He goes, then none have I offended. And so we can see the plebeians who are confused down here, they're kind of up there where Brutus is now. They're following the line of reasoning for the action of killing Julius Caesar. The next page, when Antony enters, line 40, right around in there. Follow on, please. Here comes his body. Here comes his body, mourned by Mark Antony, who, though he had no hand in his death, he shall receive the benefit of his dying, a place in the commonwealth, as which you shall not. Okay, so he's a citizen. So Mark Antony didn't do any of the killing, just as you guys didn't do any of the killing, but he's going to benefit from the death of Caesar just like everyone's going to benefit. Because we don't have this tyrant who will take the crown and go and do whatever he wants. And so it's a big important moment. He goes, with this I depart, that as I slew my best lover for the good of Rome, I have the same dagger for myself when it shall please my country to need my death. Think about that. Again, guys, Brutus is not a bad guy. Brutus is the one that we feel for. He had to do this because of his convictions. He's saying, here's my dagger. This is what I used to kill Caesar. And when Rome needs my death, you can use this dagger to take me out, if it's for the better of Rome. A very noble gesture. It's so important that you understand that. And then look at the reactions from these plebeians. When he's pretty much saying, kill me when it's necessary. Live, Brutus, live, live. Bring him with triumph home unto his house. Give him a statue with his ancestors. Let him be seated. So, in those 3 lines, and if we saw this as a play, everyone on stage would be screaming something, okay, but these people were meant to be heard. Look at what they think of him. Give him a statue like the rest of his noble ancestry. make him Caesar, put him in charge. And remember, Cassius has gone to split the crowd so everybody can hear. So Cassius is some way over there. Maybe somebody else is way over there. But we have all of these people, okay, moving around so that the message can be told. Okay, so everybody in the crowd is very much in support, yay, of Brutus. So when Antony comes up to speak, Brutus has one more thing there, line 55-ish. He says, "Good countrymen, let me depart alone, and for my sake, and for me, do me a favor, stay around and listen to Antony. Do grace to Caesar's corpse, and grace his speech tending to Caesar's glory, which Mark Antony, by our permission, is allowed to make. I do entreat him, not a man depart, save I alone till I enter." So please stay as a favor to me. You think good of me? Stay. Listen to what he has to say. And we gave him permission to speak, and he didn't do any of the killing. But let him speak, and you listen to what he has to say. Again, another kind of not a bad moment, but a moment that Brutus, if he could go back in time, in a few pages down the road, he probably would have not allowed Mark Antony's speech. In fact, he might have had him killed. Good. So Antony comes in, his first line, "For Brutus' sake I am beholding to you." Beholding, so indebted. So thank you very much, and thank you for listening to me. What does he say? Because it's noisy, so I can't hear. He says, "For Brutus' sake." He finds himself beholding to God. "Well, Tur's word, 'twere best he speak no harm of Brutus. Yeah, this Caesar was a tyrant." Follow the ebbs and flows, the waves, the ups and downs of this crowd. So you can see, because at one point, Mark Antony is going to say, I'm not an orator like Brutus. That means I am not a good speech maker. I can't speak. I'm not that good in front of a crowd like Brutus is. But we as the audience, us, the readers, you're even better than Brutus. Brutus did a great job. He told an audience, he told the public reasons why they killed their famous, popular person, and, okay, we go along with that, we're fine. In fact, I want you to be Caesar, I want you to have all these things. So they think so much of Brutus. Now Antony comes in, who 5 minutes ago, Antony would have been the hero, but he is way down here, okay, way down here. After Antony talks, he's going to completely flip it. But he has to follow those rules of not speaking badly. And that's why with this, his most famous speech, top 5 Shakespearean speeches of all time, mainly because of the first couple lines here. So follow along. "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. So please listen to me and be quiet. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar." So I'm not going to be giving speeches about how great he was and how great he was. Okay? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So there's a lot of very interesting word choice that he takes here. Look at these words, noble and honorable. He's showing these people that these people are honorable and loyal, but then eventually look at what they did, and they call themselves honorable. Now I can't speak badly of them because they are honorable people. But look at these examples to show that Caesar wasn't a tyrant. But again, he doesn't speak badly of those conspirators. And this is his good usage of the human language, the English language, or whatever language back then, Latin. And so we have line 75 or so. "The noble Brutus had told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously, so a deadly, a fault we're dying for. So Caesar's answered. Here under leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honorable man, so are they all honorable men come I to speak at Caesar's funeral." And now here's where he starts to tell about Caesar and how he wasn't a tyrant, but look at how he does it kind of cryptically. "He was a friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious, and, well, Brutus is an honorable man, so I must have to trust what he says. Okay? He had brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. So, in all of his conquering, they brought all of these money and slaves and all of this stuff, but it was for the general coffers. It was for our treasury department, not for his bank account. Was this ambitious? Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. When the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. Well, you all did see that on the Lupercal, I thrice presented him a kingly crown, and he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Well, Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. Well, let's just pause for a moment. Think about this from a public, a plebeian perspective. All of these things, oh, he did care about us. He was concerned we were poor. His victory spoils did go to us, and well, not like my little bank account, but you know, the whole Commonwealth. Maybe he wasn't so ambitious. Because look at what Mark Antony says. What he says is true. Look at all those things that he did. We don't necessarily see the ambition that Cassius and Brutus were talking about. And, in fact, we were there. Mark Antony did offer him a crown 3 times, and he refused it 3 times. You're right, I don't think that's very ambitious. Boy, maybe we were wrong. Maybe Brutus and those guys are other. I don't know. But Mark Antony, let's keep hearing. Let's hear what he has to say. And so they continues. Yeah, Brutus says he was ambitious, he's an honorable man. You know, I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. Then what cause withholds you then to mourn for him? So you all loved him at one point. So why are you not mourning him right now? Why are you, yes, you were confused for a few days and concerned about why, but now after hearing Brutus, you guys were happy that Caesar was dead. But you loved him and he loved you. Why are you not mourning for him now? That doesn't make sense to me. O judgments, thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me. My heart is in the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me. Here is a wonderful moment. The corpse of Caesar is right there. I'm at the pulpit, Antony talking to you. And so, people, how can you behave this way? I'm sorry, I'm emotional right now. I need a moment, please. My heart is there in the coffin with Caesar. I must pause until my heart comes back to me so I can speak. Just a moment. Talk amongst yourselves. You can almost imagine him just kind of appearing, just giving them moments to stew on it, moments to think about it and absorb it and reflect on it. Look at the plebeians. These guys are a good barometer or a thermometer to see how things are going from time to time. Look at the first plebeian, line 108 or so. Methinks there is much reason in his sayings, if thou consider rightly of the matter, Caesar has had great wrong. Has he, masters? I fear there will a worse come in his place. So they're worried about what's going to happen now. And so they are on board with Antony at this point. And if you don't believe so, wait until we see what happens the next time. Mark Antony gets ready to talk again, and they go, there is not a nobler man in Rome than Antony. 1 page ago, we would have said that about Brutus. But now Mark Antony is the most noble. So Mark Antony is good with his speeches, and people are listening to what he says. So, Antony goes on to talk about line 119. Look at this. He goes, oh, masters, if I were disposed to stir your hearts and minds to mutiny and rage, I do Brutus wrong and Cassius wrong, who you all know are honorable men. I will not do them wrong, because if he did them wrong, that would be against his word and his honor. Now, obviously, his goal is to get everybody to rage and mutiny based on what we saw at the very end of the previous scene. But he can't come out straight away and say it. Have you ever seen a movie where somebody is trying to get somebody to do something, but if they come right out and ask it, it's not going to work? They have to make that person think it was their idea. Right? I got to make them think that it was their idea. to have the rage and the mutiny and the riots. I have to make it them so it doesn't come back to me, because I swore that I wouldn't do that. And so that's where we see Antony saying at this particular moment. In fact, he pulls out a parchment. It's Caesar's will. I rather choose to wrong the dead, to wrong myself and you, then I will then I will wrong such honorable men. So I won't do that. I won't get you riled up, because that will do them wrong and you wrong and me. I won't do that. But instead, I got Caesar's will here that I want to read to you. And you know what? Maybe I shouldn't read it, because you will see how much he loved you. And that'll make you really, you know what? Never mind. I don't want to show that to you. That will just cause you more pain and heartbreak. Do you see what he's doing? Because wouldn't you want to see what's in the will and how much Caesar loved you? But yet, no, I can't show it. No, I can't show you. It would hurt you too much to see how much he loved you. Read the will, Antony. Read it. Read the will. No, I just can't. So he's tempting them with that carrot or that cookie, and he keeps pulling it back right before they get it. Line 129. I do not mean to read, and they would go and kiss dead Caesar's wounds and dip their napkins in his sacred blood, yea, beg a hair of him for memory, and dying mention it within their wills, bequeathing it as a rich legacy unto their children. This is just going to be too painful to see what he has left you and left your children. We'll hear the will. Read it, Antony. The will, we will hear those. No, have patience. I must not read it. It's not meet, you know. It's not proper, you know, how Caesar loved you. You are not wood, you are not stones, but men. And being men, hearing the will of Caesar, it will inflame you. It will make you mad. 'Tis good you know not that you are his heirs. For if you should, what would come of it? Because when he finally does read the will, Caesar has left them a lot of stuff. He thought of you all as family. He thought of you all as his children. Now think back. Are you still loyal to Brutus? And think that Caesar was a tyrant and Caesar was ambitious? It's a good thing Caesar died? After I just told you that he considered you his children? And he turned down the Lupercal, the crown on Lupercal 3 times? Is that ambition? Imagine the ups and downs of this crowd during this particular scene. Look at the Plebeians' response on line 151. Oh, actually, Antony says, I fear, based on your reactions, I fear that I may have wronged those noble men whose daggers have stabbed Caesar. I do fear it. Oh, they were traitors, honorable men. Read the will, read the will. They were villains, murderers. The will, read the will. You will compel me then to read the will? Fine. Make a ring around the corpse of Caesar, and let me show you him that made the will. Shall I come down there? Shall I descend? Come down, come down, come down. So everybody get around the corpse. Everybody circle. Let's look at this. Look at the body here. A ring, stand around. If you have tears, prepare to shed them now. You all did know this mantle, this cloak, this toga. I remember the first time he ever put it on. It was a summer's evening in his tent after we had this big battle. I remember it. Look. Look in this place ran Cassius's dagger. Look over here where Casca. Look. This, the well-beloved Brutus stabbed, and as he plucked his cursed steel away, mark how the blood of Caesar followed it. That was the most painful cut of all. That was the most painful. And so he's showing them the 2-day-old, probably rigor mortis body, but still covered in blood, showing them the death stabs that happened. The top of the next page there, line 177, read along. For Brutus, as you know, was Caesar's angel, his favorite. Judge, O you gods, how dearly Caesar loved him. This was the most unkindest cut of all. For when the noble Caesar saw him stab, ingratitude, more strong than traitor's arm, quite vanquished him, quite killed him. So it wasn't so much the daggers, it was the betrayal. That, my Romans, is what killed your precious Caesar and my precious Caesar. 188, he goes, when great Caesar fell, oh, what a fall was there, my countrymen. Then I and you and all of us fell down, whilst bloody treason flourished over us. So while these conspirators swaggered around and talked to us, we were just crushed, and we should have been crushed by this. Look, here is himself marred, as you see, with traitors. So look at this body. Look at the blood isn't oozing out anymore after 2 days. The heart's not pumping. But just look at how horrible this situation was. So, good friends, sweet friends, let me not stir you up to such a sudden flood of mutiny. They that have done this deed are honorable. I come not, friends, to steal away your hearts. I am no orator, as Brutus is. Yeah, right, you're better than he is. But as you know me all, a plain, blunt man that loves my friends. For I have neither wit nor words, nor worth, action, nor utterance, nor the power of speech to stir man's blood. Obviously you do. But you see him saying that he doesn't, and everybody obviously knows that he does. But were I Brutus, and Brutus Antony, there was an Antony, would ruffle up your spirits and put a tongue in every wound of Caesar that should move the stones of Rome to rise in mutiny. But I'm Antony and I can't speak falsely. But if I were Brutus and Brutus Antony, we would rise you up and you would just wreak havoc and riot and take down everything that is Rome. And that's where everybody, we'll burn Brutus's house. Yay, we'll kill the conspirators. We'll seek them out. You know what? At the end they say, let's burn Caesar's body and use the flames to go light their everything up. And, you know, everything goes nuts. So everybody leaves. And just to wrap this up here, Antony's line after they left with the body on line 256, now let it work. Mischief thou art afoot. Take thou what course thou wilt. So a very famous line, mischief thou art afoot. And the riot has taken off. Some servant comes in and says that Brutus and Cassius are rid like madmen through the gates of Rome. Methinks they have had some notice of the people, how I had moved them. Bring me to Octavius. So Octavius Caesar has finally been allowed to come in. It's safe for him. Brutus and Cassius have fled and left because they've heard the crowd and the commotion of what was happening. So Antony, look at how he manipulated those people. Just with his words. And at one point at the top he goes, oh folks, I forgot, I haven't even told you the will yet. Read the will! They were going to do all this stuff without even hearing about how I'm going to give you, Caesar, give you some money. I'm going to give you my gardens so you can walk and stroll and make them a public park. I give this to you. And that just pushed them over the edge. Cassius and Brutus will never step in the gates of Rome again. They have fled for their lives, as have other conspirators. People haven't been caught. And this next scene, we will see one person who, just because he has the same name as someone else, a conspirator, things don't work out too well in his favor. Okay? Act 3, Scene 3, shortly afterwards, so afterward meaning shortly after all of the craziness that happened with Mark Antony's speech, well, first Brutus' speech, and then Antony's. Remember that roller coaster that the plebeians went up and down in their support. I mean, it was, whoever was talking at that time was able to sway them. Brutus did a great job. He took a confused and anxious and worried public who had lost their ruler 2 days ago. And so they were still like, what happened? We will be resolved. You will tell us what happened. And he convinced them that, you know, Caesar should die. And they're like, okay, Brutus, yay, Brutus, make him Caesar. And then Mark Antony comes up, and Mark Antony's almost treated like an enemy. But Antony gives a couple of those monologues where he completely gets them so enraged to go and fight and riot that they're going to take Caesar's body and cremate it and use the fires to go and burn down all the houses of the traitors. He did that just in a couple pages. All of his, you know, his wording, and just, that's rhetoric, folks. With your words, you can get somebody to rise up and do that. That's amazing. And especially when he had to give those, play by the rules of the conspirators for the, the funeral. So, excuse me. It's just a very important part, and that's why I believe that's the most famous scene in the whole play. But scene 3, this is a short time afterwards where we're going to see this individual named Cinna, which this is a very minor conspirator from the previous pages. There's another guy named, it's almost like two guys named Steve. And he runs into, not the conspirator, but the other guy named Steve. They go, "What's your name?" "I'm Steve." "Oh, well, you're a conspirator." "No, I'm not." But mob mentality, they go and they just, it's not very good for Cinna, just because he has the name. So follow along. This is the end of Act 3.
Scene 3, shortly afterward. A street near the Forum. Enter Cinna the poet, and after him the plebeians.
I dreamt tonight that I did feast with Caesar, and things unluckily charge my fantasy. I have no will to wander forth of doors, yet something leads me forth.
What is your name?
Whither are you going?
Where do you dwell?
Are you a married man or a bachelor?
Answer every man directly.
Aye, and briefly.
Aye, and wisely.
Aye, and truly, you were best.
What is my name? Whither am I going? Where do I dwell? Am I a married man or a bachelor? Then to answer every man directly and briefly, wisely and truly, wisely I say, I am a bachelor.
That's as much as to say they are fools that marry. You'll bear me a bang for that, I fear. Proceed directly.
Directly? I am going to Caesar's funeral.
As a friend or an enemy?
As a friend.
That matter is answered directly.
For your dwelling briefly.
Briefly, I dwell by the Capitol.
Your name, sir, truly.
Truly, my name is Cinna.
Tear him to pieces. He's a conspirator.
I am Cinna the poet. I am Cinna the poet.
Tear him from his bad verses. Tear him for his bad verses.
I am not Cinna the conspirator.
It is no matter. His name's Cinna. Pluck but his name out of his heart, and turn him going.
Tear him, comebrands, ho, firebrands, to Brutus's, to Cassius's, burn all, some to Decius's house, and some to Cascus, some to Ligarius's, away, go!
All the plebeians exit, dragging off Cinna.
Imagine this mob walking around looking for conspirators, and somebody comes like, "Who are you? What's your name? What's your name?" "Oh, my name isn't important." Blah, blah. "No, what's your name? What's your name?" And eventually, since this guy's a poet, he's a kind of a wordsmith. He's trying to be funny, and this is very familiar to the very first page of the play, when those two Roman guards, the Murillus and Flavius, stop that shoe repairman, the cobbler. And they have that word game back and forth. "Well, what do you do?" "Oh, I'm the mender of, bad souls, worn souls." But yet you don't know that he means shoe soles, that type of thing. It's kind of a wordplay. And so that's why, he's very kind of not forthcoming with information about himself until you see the lines, 12, 13, 14, where he finally speaks a lot and he goes, "Oh, ultimately I'm a bachelor." Somebody goes, "Oh, so you mean that fools are the ones who get married? Well, I'm going to hit you for that. But tell me your name. Where do you live?" And so he goes, "Okay, fine, I'm Cinna." The conspirator said, No, I'm the poet, I'm the poet. It doesn't matter to these people. There's a phrase called mob mentality sometimes. If you've ever seen riots or, soccer games or what they call football in Europe, sometimes those can get very violent and it's not intended, but people just start getting ramped up and things happen. And so they take him off kicking and screaming, and I think we can assume he probably is killed. But we don't see the actual death on stage. They just whoop him and drag him off, kicking and screaming. But just because his name is Cinna, the fourth plebeian at the bottom, right after Cinna says, "I'm not Cinna the conspirator," it's no matter. His name's Cinna. So pluck him by thy name. So, he's done. He's done just because his name is Cinna. So at the end of this act, we have really the ball has rolled. All of the action that needed to lead us to these wars has happened. We've seen Brutus and Cassius shooting out of Rome because of the tide has turned as a result of Antony's speech. And so we played out, what's going to happen? Well, they're not going to come back unless Antony and company are extinguished and are welcomed back. Because if they step foot in there and people find them, well, what's going to happen? Look at what they say here. Let's go and burn this guy's house. Let's go burn down the house of Brutus and Cassius and Casca and Ligarius and all of these other conspirators. So it's not a safe place for the conspirators. So they're going to have to build up an army and have a war. and fight back in order to take control. Now obviously Antony is not going to want to do that, and as we discussed in our background information, he's going to develop a triumvirate, which is a ruling class of 3. And so he's going to do that with Octavius Caesar and another general who we'll see in a little bit. But Octavius is the one that he says, come and we'll meet, and then they'll finally have a discussion. So